Alessia De Santis, our foreign correspondent from Italy, found a story that only she could find. Venturing through the fringes of Amsterdam and Milan, she discovered striking similarities in the ways theatre is being offered as a way to connect people to society. She says, "Inclusion doesn't mean lowering the artistic bar. It means, instead, breaking the fourth wall, not only in the technical sense, but as a metaphor for all the invisible walls that keep certain bodies, certain stories, certain lives outside the room." This is the Culture Press podcast, brought to you by the cultural press agency Culture Pairs.
There's a threshold that interests me more than the stage itself. It's the one right before it, the door of a theatre in a neighborhood where, officially, theatre should not exist. I know that threshold because I've stood on it myself. Before I moved to Amsterdam, I worked for 2 years as press officer and social media manager at PIMOF, a theatre in the far southern periphery of Milan. During this experience, I learned that part of the job meant paying close attention to who actually lived around us, and the neighborhood included people living in disadvantaged conditions. The job sometimes was difficult. For every partnership with a care home that worked, there were months spent writing emails to the local municipal administration, funding calls that were promised and never opened, support that was announced and never arrived. And then there was another kind of effort, convincing people who lived in the center of Milan to take a tram for half an hour and come all the way out here. I learned early on that making a good show is not enough. You also have to convince people it's worth crossing the city to see it. And in a city like Milan, there's a battle you fight every single evening. When I got to Amsterdam, I found myself asking a question. How much of what I lived through at PIMOF is specific to Milan, and how much is a struggle that repeats itself? To answer that, I went back to Milan and I sat down with someone that knows PIMOF far better than I ever did, Antonella Miggiano, project manager and my former colleague. To get there, you have to cross a 3-kilometre avenue south from the Duomo, the one that writer Jonathan Bazzi described almost as a purgatory between the city centre and the outskirts. And you arrive at PIMOF, the last theatre before Milan simply stops being Milan. This conversation happened in Italian, so you are going to hear the beginning of it and then a doubling for Antonella's voice. Allora, cominciamo come se io non lo sapessi cos'è il PIMOF e come nasce.
Allora, il PIMOF è uno spazio, un contenitore quasi, una factory.
A space, a container, almost a factory. That's how it began, out of an idea from Maria, Pietro, Leonardo, who many years ago had this visionary dream, to open a space available to artists, where they could create without necessarily needing to go on stage, to debut, to already have a production behind them. Over time it also became a proper theatre, with a season of drama and dance, and for a few years now, a children's theatre season too. But at its core, it remains a space where artists can come and ask for residencies, hospitality, support for creation. What sets us apart from other spaces in Milan is exactly this, never being simply the same thing, but constantly changing. A few years ago, we took on a real community building path to respond more directly to what the neighbourhood was asking of us. We're in a peripheral area of southern Milan, the last theatre, you could say, to the south of the city. Right after us comes another town, part of Milan's hinterland, which has its own problems too. But more than the periphery itself, we're penalised by the specific context we're in. A street of nothing but offices, where activity is concentrated during the day, and in the evening there's very little cultural participation, because the people who chose to live so far from the centre often did so precisely to detach themselves from Milan's city life. So in the evening, There's not much appetite for being together, for building community. It's also a difficult neighbourhood because it isn't uniform. Milan has many peripheries, but they're much more distinct from one another, for historical reasons tied to the city's development and to what's being called the phenomenon of centralisation. Real hubs sprang up, with residential zones that don't communicate with each other. The first wave arrived in the 70s. Then, with the economic development of the 80s, a second neighbourhood arrived. And then there's Grattosolio, a much more working-class area. So there's this split between poor working-class neighbourhoods like Grattosolio and very wealthy ones like Terrazze, which don't communicate with each other either. In between, there's a very long avenue, 3 or 4 kilometres, which the Milanese writer Jonathan Badzzi described well. Almost a purgatory separating the centre from the periphery, leading eventually to Rozzano, an entire working-class neighbourhood built in the 1950s for families migrating north from the south of Italy. It's a neighbourhood detached from Milan, a world of its own, a satellite, with its own internal dynamics. It doesn't follow the logic of Showcase Milan, the one where everything is perfect and functional, where everyone does the aperitivo, where it feels like everything is 5 minutes away, when in reality we're half an hour from the Duomo by tram. Kids from Grattosolio often don't even go into Milan. They'd rather stay, because they don't have the economic means to live the centre. I've been told many times, what am I supposed to do in Milan if I have to pay just to get into a club? So a lot of young people stay in the neighbourhood, where, aside from a few initiatives from local associations, and there are actually quite a few, there's no real cultural network to show people that it's possible to feel good through culture too. There's a lot of distrust. That's what we sense most. Distrust toward cultural offerings. That said, a lot of work has been done through partnerships with care homes, with places that host people with a migration background. This is a theatre that, compared to those in the centre, deals with a completely different potential audience, with completely different accessibility needs. When we arrived here, our theatre already had a strong vocation for contemporary, research-based work, always a very high level as a cultural proposal. The risk was closing ourselves into that ideal, making culture only for the few in an area like this. We realized that would have been a doomed idea. So we didn't lower the level, we created opportunities. We opened up the space, broke down the wall of mistrust, so that someone could actually decide to come and see what happens in the theatre in the evening. We did this through targeted initiatives, working with care homes, day centres, first reception centres, also through agreements of an economic nature, because one of the main barriers is the assumption that a 10 or 15 euro ticket is already accessible, when for a family of 5 it isn't at all. So the first thing we did was, children don't pay. Anyone coming to the theatre season can bring their children for free. In the children's season, kids under 4 never pay. Those between 5 and 14 pay a subsidized €5 ticket.
E quindi spesso i giovani decidono poi di rimanere qui, ma purtroppo nel quartiere, a parte qualche iniziativa delle associazioni, che è una zona ricchissima di associazioni culturali, e quindi si cercano di fare dei festival, delle azioni un po' culturali, però rimangono sempre molto slegate.
We also took part in a cultural welfare call together with another major children's theatre in Milan, and developed a system where a €3 ticket is issued directly by the family pediatrician, almost like a tonic alongside actual medicine. The project reached every pediatrician in Milan through the Italian Society of Pediatrics, and every child received a small booklet to choose a show and come with their voucher. It's been a very successful initiative. We're in our first year and already preparing the second. We understood that theatrical education really begins between the ages of 0 and 6, and that's where an audience starts to form. And thanks to the children, the families come along too. From this also came a children's theatre course, requested by the families themselves. Here too, access to after-school activities in Milan runs too often along class lines. Some families can afford 5 activities a week. Others, larger families, can't afford any. So we decided to price the course according to a family's ISEE, the indicator of household economic situation, with a genuinely symbolic fee that's essentially waived for families with a very low ISEE. Theatre shouldn't be only for those who can afford it. It has to be an opportunity for everyone. It's worth saying we're a semi-private space, so these are policies that aren't always easy to sustain if you're not part of the public system. But we've chosen to dedicate part of our investment specifically to this. We've also introduced the suspended ticket. Anyone who wants to can leave one already paid for someone who needs it. It's often retirees who ask for it. We're also becoming a punto viola, a purple point. Actually, we already are one. An initiative run by the association Donne per Strada, which offers support day and night to people in situations of danger or psychological distress, particularly girls and women. We'll provide our staff with proper training to offer first-line support, and then direct people towards specialized centers. Opening the theatre, making people understand that it isn't just a place where a company shuts itself away to prepare the next show, but somewhere people can also find comfort, that matters, especially in a peripheral area. Out here, theatres shouldn't just be places you go to watch a performance. People need to be able to take part in everything that happens around it too.
Bene, non so se ho altro da chiederti perché in realtà sarà molto brava.
parlato per ben 13 minuti.
It was with that same instinct in mind that I arrived, a year later, at Zid Theatre for the closing night of the Explorers Festival, which the theatre organizes in different locations in the neighborhood. For years, this neighborhood carried a reputation as the worst neighborhood in the Netherlands. Not for violence, but for something quieter and harder to shake off. Poverty. The kind that closes door before you've even noticed they were there. And right in the middle of it sits Zid Theatre, a place that has spent years building performances, not for the neighborhood, but with it. I spoke about Zid Theatre and its impact in the neighborhood with one of its founders, Carolina Spijk.
And the other way, we are here situated for 20 years in the Kolekitbuurt in Amsterdam West. When we came here and when we got also this prize, this was on the list the worst neighborhood in whole Holland.
Wow.
So, welcome to the Wonderland. And I can tell you honestly, I never experienced like that. Mm-hmm. But because we worked here and working still, and still have educational projects with the children, we are connected with very diverse group of people that are living here. There, have meetings, have storytellings. Let them come here. They are all volunteering here, so we understand that actually under all these problems where you have the worst neighborhood, I don't know if it's now officially, but it's not so much better, I can tell you, it's poverty. It's poverty. It's most of the problem is that people are just very poor, and because you are very poor, you don't have access to nothing. Yeah,
especially to culture in general.
You cannot provide to your children nothing. Yeah. And you have to take care to survive. And most of the people survive of regular way, and some go on the wrong path because there is no other way. So in this sense, we are we are every day in this situation. And we also have a lot of, when we build festival, we go also beforehand, really whole year. We have different events, different meetings, different events here that we always research what we do.
The idea for Carolina is not to exclude the local communities from Zid Theatre, but to include them through co-creation of shows and workshops.
So when we start to do, we are always working in co-creation, and then we make idea what is the performance about, and then we are searching for communities that actually not usually are asked for the stories and for the experiences. And then we have the series of workshops with different communities, and we actually research how these people reflect on the subjects that we want. Concretely, for this performance, an example, because one of the subjects is about, are you going to stay or you going away when kind of we call it in Dutch nood situation, when it's something really kind of a situation of emergency. Could be war, but could be also the natural environmental disaster. And then we have here people also with refugee background in the group. And we made one process of workshops here in Amsterdam. Is a ship called Galaxy Boat, where are living 1,500 refugees. And from these 1,500 refugees of the very luxury, boat that is normally traveling, staying here, 1,200 are men and 300 are women, and it's really very particular situation. So we went there, we were talking with people, we did a workshop, we bring the people to us, and from this we are really, and there's some people from very diverse countries and experience and reasons. Some are political refugees, some are more coming really from the war zone, some were stuck somewhere and they in the war zone and have to just, it's terrible stories, of course. But then we also research with them together what is this subject, what is under this subject. So this is one of the examples. But honestly, we had different programs with the main theater here, International Theater Amsterdam. It was very amazing. And we made the programs every year, and then it was full of the people that never come to these performances. But it is honestly also the representation is so important. I don't say literally that you have to put, I don't like also this ethnical representation that you have exactly to put the actor from this ethnical group to talk to this group. I think this is one of recipes, but doesn't mean that it's the only one. But it's about that you represent the stories and narratives and the world that these people live in. And this is totally different of Hamlet. And
because it's something that does not speak to them.
Three Sisters and of Ibsen. Come on, this doesn't resonate to me. It's interesting to reach people. Otherwise, I don't know.
But
why
do you
should
also
do
have
theater.
an audience from the center? Because I remember that. Okay, because I remember that in Milan, this is something we really struggled with, because we had, of course, as in Amsterdam, a lot of theaters in the center, and they are, really huge, important theaters. So they have their base audience, and the audience that doesn't want to come to these areas where you don't have a fancy neighborhood. You don't have the experience of I'm doing the Italians the aperitivo and then I'm going to the so we have this kind of imaginary at least in Milan. So I was really curious because again this is really similar to what I've been working in for 3 years.
This is so nice.
It's super similar. I'm amazed. Like it's the most similar theater I've been in. So I'm like wow. It was really, and also mine was also purple. It's all purple. So you will love the owner because she also loves purple. So you and her, you are like, I swear, like, it's impressive.
This is really nice. But I think, yes, the public comes also from other places. Depends, of course, what is the show, who is performing. Festival is a very good opportunity to mix the audience. And also, people become curious because some people, of course, are curious. They are going to see these beautiful, big, regular shows, and they like it. But you're always in the same position. You're just a spectator who, look. And if you're sleeping there, nobody cares. If it's when you come here, you feel a little bit different vibe. You meet people that you normally not meet together. You're sitting with the people in public, you think, hey, where I'm here. So I have very good experience with mixing the public, and there are certain occasions in the Netherlands. For example, there is a theater weekend when all the theaters open the spaces and give a discount, and we are consciously participate because it's so fantastic that people from different cities like Groningen and stuff, they say, okay, we found on the map and we didn't want to go to the center, we know everything, we want to come to the suburbs. So you have here people from the different cities coming consciously to suburbs of Amsterdam, which is very nice.
2 theaters, 2 cities, and, by chance, 2 shades of the same color. Somehow, it felt like the whole episode compressed into one detail. 2 people on opposite ends of Europe solving the same problem without ever having met each other. Because that's what this really came down to, in the end. The daily unglamorous work of convincing someone to get on a tram or a bus or walk down a street they would normally avoid and sit in a room with people they wouldn't otherwise sit. With different tools, they both follow the same instinct. Open the door and then keep finding new reasons for people to actually walk through it.
Thank you for listening to this special English edition of the Culture Press podcast. You can find most of our material in Dutch, English and French on our website, culturepers.nl, or on Substack at newsbrief.culturepers.nl.